Okay, so let's talk about the rhetorical situation in the article we just read, or the excerpt from Taco USA. So the writer is Gustavo Arellano, and he's a writer who focuses primarily on Mexican American culture. He had a column for a long time in the LA Times. It was in other newspapers as well, called Ask a Mexican, where people would ask him questions and he would sort of explain the culture behind them, why people do what they do, say the things they say, and how these parts make up the Mexican culture. All right, so the context is that Arellano has been sort of fascinated with Mexican culture and covered it extensively over his whole career. Column should say Ask a Mexican, not As a Mexican. A lot of the work brought him back to food. And so he started thinking about a book that he could write to really bind all of his thinkings over the years and the questions he's been asked. Also, in 2012, during Obama's term, a lot of minorities were being looked at differently, right? Some people had a president who looked like them for the first time. And so minorities were celebrating aspects of their culture more so than they had in the past. And so it's the first time some cultures were coming to light in our country. And so the book is sort of a part of that movement, where we look at cultures that had not been represented before and sort of bring them to light and celebrate them. And it's also in the midst of a food revolution that happened in the last 10 years or so. We really start thinking about the food we eat and celebrating it. Okay, so his audience is anyone interested in learning about the influence of Mexican food on our culture or other aspects of the Mexican culture? This is an interesting question, because our audience is interesting because you usually think of yourself as the audience, right? You're reading this, but this is his primary or intended audience, right? Like, who did he write this for when he was thinking about this book? He probably wasn't thinking about high school students reading about this book. I'm sure he'd be thrilled that they're reading it, but that wasn't his first thought, right? Like, you wouldn't be his audience if your teacher wouldn't have put this in front of you. So while you are the audience for this reading today or for this lesson or in this class, you weren't Gustavo Arellano's primary or intended audience, right? You guys just kind of happened to come across it. All right, so the purpose of his article or excerpt from his book is to examine, promote, and argue about the importance of Mexican food in our culture in the United States, right? Mexican American food, not just Mexican food. He wants to talk about what it's doing in this country today, or in most recent times. And I think his message is Mexican food and culture should be championed or celebrated for its richness. And it should be understood that there's in so many aspects of our lives that we don't even think of, right? We put all sorts of food inside a tortilla. The other day, I had some buffalo chicken salad. I put in a tortilla, new kind of taco, right? It was weird, but it was good. Or people put fajitas in salads as a way to make it more tasty, right? Fajita meat, chicken or beef is very tasty, but you want to have it a little more healthy, you might put it in a salad rather than in a taco. So that's just two quick examples about how it's everywhere when we don't even think about it. All right, and the exigence, his purpose for writing. I think his exigence starts with his upbringing, right? Like how important his food was to his family and those memories are to him. And he also sees a void. He's like, man, nobody's talking about this. Nobody's writing about this. Nobody's thinking about these things. And so something that was so deeply personal to him from a childhood till now is part of it. And then seeing that void is not being filled is the other part of it. He wants people to start thinking and talking about these issues. So that's the rhetorical situation in Taco USA, or the bit of it that we read. And yeah, that's it.